So let's talk about psychological egoism. I sort of shared with you the difference between psychological egoism and ethical egoism before. However, I'm wondering if you can remember. And so I know some of you are looking at your grades and saying, I'd love to have my points go up just a little bit. So I'm willing to give you guys extra points right here, right now, without looking. If you can tell me the difference between psychological egoism and ethical egoism, what's the difference between those two things, I would totally give you an extra point. Lauren.
I think psychological is the one that's descriptive. It says everyone acts in their own interests, but ethical, it's right if everyone acts in their best interest, and it's prescriptive.
Lauren, you are 100% correct, Amundo. That is absolutely right. The difference between psychological egoism and ethical egoism. Psychological egoism is a theory of human motivation. It claims to describe, so it's descriptive, it claims to describe what motivates human beings at all times and in all places. Ethical egoism doesn't even particularly care about psychological egoism. Ethical egoism says whether you always do or not is not the issue. The question is whether you should be selfish. And ethical egoism says, indeed, you should be selfish. And so those are the two different positions. We are going to, at this point, look at we're going to be looking at psychological egoism really quickly, and I'll tell you why you got psychological egoism, ethical egoism. I'm going to tell you why one is actually better and one is maybe really good news. If you were looking for good news this morning and the election thing wasn't doing it for you, I got really good news, maybe even a gospel sort of good news. You know what I'm saying, Mr. Baher? Yeah, he's like, no. I'm picking on him because in fourth period, if you can imagine, who do you think I would pick on in fourth period just to be like, you know, because they're going to disagree with what I say. I'll just tell you, Hannah Schaefer. Of course, Hannah Schaefer is always the one who's like, and so in this class, it's Mr. Baher. Okay. Okay, where did you guys go? There you are. Sharing the screen now. Two types of egoism, and let's talk about why one is better than the other. So psychological egoism, if you don't already have this in your notes, you should put it in your notes. Psychological egoism states that people always do act in their best interests, and it is a theory of human motivation, and is a theory of human motivation that's really not a very good one for several different reasons. Firstly, it's really simplistic, and its argument for its validity is circular. Rather than objectively asking the question and searching for the answer, what motivates human beings, it seeks to pigeonhole all motives of humans into one answer. And lots of times, you have to jump through all sorts of different hoops to make it work. What about the person who throws himself in front of the train in order to pull somebody he doesn't know off the tracks? Well, it's just so you'll feel good. Yeah, I'm sure that's it, as the train's coming straight towards his body. He just wants to feel good. Well, he wouldn't be able to live with himself if he didn't. Yeah, maybe, but he didn't have time to really think about that before he jumped in front of the train to save the stranger. And that doesn't even ask the real question, which is, if he was only selfish, why would he care about the stranger in the first place? Right? I mean, in order to have some sort of fulfillment of a desire, you have to have the desire there in the first place. So why would he care about a stranger? Let's look at this argument. So firstly, I would say that psychological egoism is way too simplistic for the complexity of human motives. Human beings are incredibly complex beings. And it's undoubtedly the case that we are selfish. How many of you admit that, yes, I am selfish sometimes? It wouldn't be too much of a stretch then to wonder if maybe we were always selfish. But I've already pointed out to you with one example how I think we can see that we aren't always selfish. Maybe we're mostly selfish, but for the vast majority of humans, we aren't always selfish. After all, why would you, I brought up the scenario. Imagine someone kind of vaguely, a family down the road from you, they're not particularly close. You hear that their dad has cancer or something. It's terrible, it's sad. And you can't do anything to help them. You can't say, oh, gee, cancer's bad, feel better now, right? There's nothing you can do, but you still deep down hope the best for them, for their own sake. If you've really legitimately ever had that happen, any of you, one time, then psychological egoism isn't real. And my guess is that we've all had that, or at least 95% of us have had those feelings for other people before. And that's because only 5% of us are either sociopaths or psychopaths. Psychopaths typically don't have those types of feelings, right? We don't wish well for anyone else because we don't care, because we're a psychopath. But most people are not that way. Okay, so this is why psychological egoism is silly. The experience of pleasure upon attaining something requires the desire for the thing attained. In other words, the psychological egoist could try to say, hey, when you donated money to save the kid over there in Africa who is starving, that's just because you're selfish. You just wanted to feel good. Why, if you were only selfish, why would you care about the starving kid in Africa, for goodness sake? In fact, my guess is some of us really don't have feelings about the starving kid in Africa. We just don't care. But some of us also know that the right thing to do is to help those people. And because we know it's the right thing to do, we do it anyway. Maybe even begrudgingly. Or we just change the channel. Now, if you're one of those people who just changes the channel, yeah, that action is probably selfish, but I'm not going to rub it in your faces. How many of you ever just changed the channel? Yeah. So maybe we're asking the wrong question. The question that we should be asking is not, do you do what you want to do? But rather, what do you want to do? If you see a little old lady struggling to get off the street, do you want to go help the lady get across the street? Or do you want to push her under the road and take her purse? Because she's a little old and you could do it easily. Right? That's the question. What do you want to do? If you want to help her, you're called a nice person. If you want to push her into the street and steal her purse, you're a nasty person. And while I think we could possibly say that psychological egoism isn't 100% disprovable, it's a lot harder to prove it. Once again, the myriad of human emotions is so varied, so wide, that the claim that there's always one motive behind every action is really a hard thing to do. I mean, let's just think about one thing. Supposing you want to buy a nice fishing boat. There could be lots of different reasons why you want to buy a fishing boat. Maybe it's just because you're selfish and you only care about yourself. But actually, maybe it's because you want to buy it as a present for a friend. Or maybe the boat needs some work and you want to fix it up and give it to a friend or sell it because you like fixing stuff up. Or maybe it's because you want to teach your kids how to fish. There are a whole bunch of different possible motives behind human actions. And to just claim broadly that it's only because of completely selfish motive is just to ignore what seems to be, for most people, all sorts of contradictory evidence. And now I'm going to bring to you guys some really good news. In fact, we might even say it's gospel-esque, gospel-esque. It is right for people to act in their best interest. It is wrong not to. What I don't want you guys to think of here, and I know some of you who've grown up in kind of Christian homes have probably heard this language, right? And you have in your mind, no, I don't mean this. In your Christian homes, you probably have not been taught that it's right to look after your own best interests. But you've heard terms like right and wrong, and in your mind, you sort of have this cosmic, objective idea of right and wrong and justice. If you're a egoist, I want you to take that and put that aside. Like, that's not how we egoists think. It's not like there's some sort of like egoist God sitting up there in the sky looking down and be like, oh, that guy over there helped the old woman across the street. Well, that's terrible. I'm going to send him to hell where he can burn forever for his kindness. Yeah, we're not talking about cosmic justice here. We're not talking about objective right and wrong or a God going to punish people for being like selfless. That's not what we're talking about here. In order to understand right and wrong in the egoist fashion, I think we need to rewind history and do a thought experiment. So you guys are going to join me in a thought experiment today. I want you to put the history of humanity into the VCR. You guys may even know what that is. And then hit the rewind button. So we're going to rewind. Whoop, there goes the 2020 election. Back before it now. Whoop, we're going back 2016. Whoop, we're going back to 1900. There's Teddy Roosevelt. Whoop, we're going back to 1800. George Washington just died. Going back, there's Martin Luther nailing the 95 Theses. Going back, there's the Great Schism of 1054 AD. Going back, oh, there's the end of the Roman Empire. Going back further, there's Jesus. Whoop, there's Jesus as a baby. Whoop, there's Julius Caesar. Going back further, further, further. There's the Greeks. Whoop, there's the Egyptians. There's King Tut. He's alive now. He's a baby. Going back further, 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 further. Going clear back. You're in the jungle. There is no society. There is no people but you. You are by yourself in the wilderness. I'm going to switch this up a little bit. We're going to imagine we're in the Pacific Northwest rather than the Middle East or anything. We are now in the Pacific Northwest. We're all by ourselves. There's no one else around. You are there. And you are doing everything that you can do to survive. You are completely by yourself. Now that you are by yourself, and there's literally no other human beings anywhere, is there a right and a wrong? Thou shalt not steal. Sorry, there's nothing to steal. Everything is open. You can do anything. You have perfect freedom. Thou shalt not kill. Well, there's no one to kill. There's just you. Thou shalt not commit adultery. There's no possessions and there's no other people. There's no one to commit adultery with. All the rules that you know to be true rules don't exist. You exist in complete and total freedom in this state of nature. Now, supposing in this state of nature, you look up and you see the birds flying. And you're like, oh, that's amazing. I want to be a bird and I want to fly. So you go up to the same cliff where the eagle flies from and you stretch out your arms and you jump. And you go splat. Was that wrong or was that stupid? Kind of the same thing. So when the egoist here is talking in terms of right and wrong, yes, the egoist means it is right for you to look after your best interest. That is, you ought to. But it's not like absolutely right. It's just smart. And it's wrong for you not to look after your best interests. It's not like absolutely wrong. It's stupid for you not to. Does that make sense? So what is the foundation of our society? Well, I don't know. I'm not quite in my, I'm not quite where I want to be. Yeah, there we go. This is where I want to be. So what are the foundations of our ethical system of egoism? We have to go clear back to the state of nature. And was anyone in my AP class? Lauren was in my AP class last year, and that's it. So the rest of you have probably not heard this. Lauren has heard this. Can I have somebody volunteer to be a character in this little story? Levi. Caveman Levi and Cavewoman Lauren. They have volunteered to be a part of this story. Now, I'd mentioned before you were by yourself running in the woods. Now, all of a sudden, we're going to bump into somebody else. Caveman Levi lives down by the river in a cave. Now, that might sound kind of podunky to you, but back in the caveman days, this is as good as it gets. The stream is quite a ways up above any other cave people, which means the water is pure and fresh, clean to drink. What people on down the line, the other cave people, the water by the time it gets there is not so clean. I'll let you guys figure out what that means. The cave that Caveman Levi lives in is amazing. There's even art on the walls. Cave art. Cave drawings. Beautiful. There's a really nice soft rock in the back that's a nice perfect bed. Wakes up every morning feeling better than every other cave person because the bed is really pretty good for a rock. And then there's these other really nice comfortable rocks to sit on around the fire pit at the front of the cave. So nice for Caveman Levi. He's got a great place. The fish that swim by in the little stream are so plentiful. He's got food, he's got shelter, he's got warmth, and he's got lots of soft rocks to sit on. Great times. Problem is, Cavewoman Lauren lives up on the hill. She doesn't like it. There's no stream. When she gets down to the water, it's putrid by the time it gets to where she is. It's going to make her sick if she drinks very much of it. She doesn't have a nice cave. Got clay and nasty up there on top, and there's very little food. Life is rough. And she sees that Caveman Levi's cave is pretty dang nice. And she begins to plot how she can have Caveman Levi's cave. So she finds a stick and sharpens the end, and she charges in to attack poor Caveman Levi. But Caveman Levi is bigger and stronger than Cavewoman Lauren. And so he breaks the stick and stabs her in the leg, and her leg is, the stick goes all the way through the calf muscle, and it's sticking out, and there's blood everywhere, and she limps up the hill as Levi chases her that direction, and he retreats back to protect his holy, amazing, sacred cave. So Lauren up there at the top of the hill, she pulls out the stick and shoves a bunch of mud, clay actually, in her wound, and barely survives the attack. She still wants the cave, if you know what I mean. Who wouldn't? It's a great cave, and there's great art on the walls. Great bed, very nice rock. And so she decides that she's going to attack again, but rather than using direct might, now she's going to use her wits. Now keep in mind that there's no rules. There's no thou shalt not murder. There's no thou shalt not steal. There's no society to punish Lauren for doing anything wrong. There's no society at all. It's just man against man, woman against man, whatever. That's how it is. And so she decides that she is going to wear Caveman Levi down. She's chucking rocks at him on occasion. Meanwhile, she takes cat naps. And he's constantly having to be vigilant because she is, could attack at any moment. Then she wakes up and throws more rocks and he's more vigilant. And then she takes another cat nap. She does this for 8 days until Caveman Levi can't keep his eyes open any longer. He's so exhausted that even as he's walking back to his soft rock bed, he falls asleep right next to the fireplace where there's a soft rock seats. And there he lays, exhausted, sleeping. And it's at that moment that Cavewoman Lauren, fully rested, sneaks into the cave. Sees Caveman Levi there and takes one of those comfy little seats, the rock, and crushes his head. Sorry, Levi, you're dead. And she takes the body of Caveman Levi and chucks it into the stream, and it floats away. Well, Caveman Levi, it was good while you had it, but life for you turns out was pretty short. Cave woman Lauren, you've got art on the walls of your cave. Good for you. You've been victorious. There is no rules. There are no laws. You're not going to jail. You now have the cave. Can I have somebody else volunteer to join this little tragedy? So cave woman Anne, who, by the way, also likes the same cave, says, you know what? Mine. And so she does the exact same thing to cave woman Lauren that Lauren did to Levi. Sorry, Lauren, you're dead. However, I'm just going to pick on somebody else here. Cave woman Audrey wants the cave too. Sorry, Anne, you're dead. Cave woman Ashley wants the cave now. Sorry, Audrey, you're dead. What is life like in this state of nature, people? Can you guys see the screen okay over here? Can you see the screen? Okay. What is life like in this state of nature? In the state of nature, there are no laws that we claim are wrong. There are no 10 commandments given from God. There's only smart actions and stupid actions, wise actions and unwise actions. Wrong only appears when other people show up. And Thomas Hobbes was the first one to make this argument. He said that in the state of nature, life was solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. As we just learned with our little mind experiment, our little story. And so let's ask ourselves the question, why does society exist? Do you realize things would have been a lot better if Levi and Lauren had agreed to look out for each other and to defend the cave together? They could have withstood the attack from Cave Woman Anne when Cave Woman Anne wanted to come in and take the cave. But now everyone's dead. And people realize this at some point, and they form what we call societies. And they come together, and for practical purposes, they agree on rules. You have to give up some of your freedoms, though. You are now no longer free to steal. You're now no longer free to murder. You're now no longer free to lie even, right? Lies have become bad because you have to have a society where people are trustworthy. And this is why society exists. We are better off individually as a society, even though we give up our natural rights. But you know what would even be better? If caveman Levi had decided that he was going to pretend like he was really agreeing to all these rules with cave woman Lauren and Anne and Sarah and Ashley and Emily and Stone and everybody, right? If he pretends, even though he has some sort of power and some leadership, he pretends, things will even be better for him. So he does have to give up some of his rights. But wouldn't it make more sense if he was to pretend to go along with all the societal rules that we come up with, but in the end, at least when he can get away with it, sometimes break those rules for his own benefit? That, ladies and gentlemen, is the good news. As an egoist, we can embrace these concepts. Okay, we're skipping ahead here a little bit. So here's the argument that we've looked at thus far. Everyone tends to do what they think is in their best interest for the most part. Sometimes people jump in front of the train and save the kid. Most of the time they don't. Sometimes people call the number on the screen and donate to the kids starving in Africa. Most of the time, you just change the channel. Our very society was formed because we are better off in a society than outside of the society. And this is why we have the rules that we have. The reason that we have these rules is because it benefits us individually. However, that's not where the reasoning stops. Some of you might say, okay, I can see that. Selfishness, we're all better off when we have the societal rules, so maybe I should just play along with those rules, just like everybody else. No. No, guys, firstly, you're being naive. And secondly, you can have it so much better. Why wouldn't you have it better? Okay, you don't have to write this down, but let's think through this. We are aware that the rather complicated fabric of societal morality is created by the egoists. We need not concern ourselves with it, at least not privately. Publicly, you have to play along. I want you to imagine right now politicians. Politicians are really good at this. Do you think politicians like to shake everybody's hand and are literally happy at meeting people on the streets? Most of them are not. Do you think politicians really like smiling, holding babies, and kissing them? No. It's a sham. We know it. Do you think the beauty pageant queen, when they ask her what she's going to do with her crown if she wins, I'm going to bring hope and joy to the whole world, and I hope all the children in Africa will live and blah. No, she's just saying that. You and I both know she's lying. She's playing the game. So why shouldn't you play the game too? You know what I mean? I mean, when it comes down to it, there are really two kinds of people. There are people who recognize this and they become the side that controls everybody else, or they're the side that become the sheep and let themselves be controlled. After all, let's think about this just for an instant. Supposing Donald Trump or Joe Biden, it doesn't matter, becomes president, and they get us involved in a war, right? There's a war that begins. And, say Trump picks a fight with somebody. Then all of a sudden they say, okay, we need you to go fight for your country and to die. Well, Trump got us into it. Is Trump going to die? Is he going to give his life? No, you're expected to give your life. You're being played. It'll benefit Trump, and it could kill you. You're getting played. You know that, right? Society is playing you. You could stop letting society play you, and you could play the game too. Rather than being the controlled, you could control. And that's what the egoist realizes. He does what is in his best interest. He transgresses against societal rules as far as he believes it is wise to do so. He will not give himself for anything that is simply not good for him. And he certainly won't give his life for his country or anything else stupid, because he realizes that other people are being played. He's not necessarily going to be played like that. So you see, guys, this really is good news, even though it sounds a bit depressing perhaps to you. You know now that there are other egoists out there, and they are playing you. You can say no, and now you can move on to play others, and that's the good news. You can be the master of your own domain. You can recognize that your life exists and is there for you. And you can live it to the fullest, because that's really all you have. So what do you guys think? Thoughts, comments? Anyone? Come on, Josh, I know you want to say something. He shaking his head, no, I don't. Have I convinced you guys? Ashley Miller says yes. Emily says yes. Sarah, what do you think? Don't be played.
I don't agree because there's like other people out there who have feelings too. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not saying that they don't have feelings. I mean, but why should you care? I mean, be nice to them if you want, but I mean, there are limits, right? You're going to give your life for a stranger?
I mean, we're all like, we all have the same consciousness, so.
Okay, well, firstly, you don't know that. I mean, maybe you think that, but I mean, you don't know that. You might be the only thing. You might be the only consciousness that exists. Like the rest of this could all be simulation. I mean, one's just as likely as the other. Josh, you're looking disappointed in me. Okay, so Sarah's not buying it. Who thinks that, yeah, that this makes some sense? Let me see, like this would make some degree of sense. Anne says, yeah. Come on, Ashley Miller, I know you think, you agree with me here a little bit, right? Lauren, come on. Just a little bit. Oh, guys, you're not going to let yourself be controlled by the ruling class, are you? Let's call you. I am controlled by the egoists. I do. When the egoist says march, I march. When the egoist says jump, I say how high. Okay, well, I'm going to stop this awkwardness right now. How many of you felt that was awkward? Yes? Okay, so the vast majority of you felt that that was awkward. You guys not like it when I tease you like that and kind of make an argument and poke fun of you for not believing the argument I just made? Yeah, I'm sorry, Sarah. I can't help myself. It's my nature. Okay, so we've already read Robinson. Oh, and I should also point this out. Keep in mind that I may have said some things today that I completely disagree with, making the argument for the egoist. However, I'll say this. If you don't, I'll make this subjective. If I didn't believe that there was a universality to morality, I would be an egoist hands down, no problem. Now, I might still find that I would be fond with, I know I have fondness towards other people, especially my wife and my kids. I'm fond of them. And they might even warrant myself to sometimes do something that's not in my own best interests. But you can be darn sure that if Donald Trump called me up and said, go give your life for your country, I'd say, yeah, no way. But then again, maybe the reality that the egoist argues for is not the true reality. Maybe there's something beyond simply a societal construct of morality. And if that's the case, then the egoist explanation doesn't work. Does that make some of you feel better? Okay, any questions before I let you guys go? So next week, you will be looking at a video by John Stossel. My wife, let me go through a couple things here really quickly. We're coming right down to the end of the quarter. And so if you're missing something, if you're not happy with your grades, please feel free to send me an email. If you need to make something up, now's a good time to do it. Today's a good time to do it. My wife is incredibly pregnant. She's about ready to have a baby, like literally today, maybe tomorrow, next day, something like that. And so we are on the verge of baby time. Oh boy. The thought is very stressful. You know what? I am convinced that my wife does not remember labor properly. Like, I've been there twice before. Back in the old days, the husband's got to sit outside and sit in the waiting room and be like, I hope things are okay. Baby born, here you go. But now, no, we're in there like, do you want to cut the umbilical cord? No, I don't. You do it. I don't need to feel like I'm a part of this process more than I already am. Like, Like, if you can cut the umbilical cord, do it, people. Good grief. I know some dads want to feel like that. Like, I was there and I birthed the child too. No, no, you didn't. You were just there. You did not birth the child, and you had very little to do with it. Okay, regardless, we're coming right down that, and yes, it is stressing me out a little bit. So I won't be here, possibly. You never know. Maybe she'll, maybe it'll take a long time. But she should be having the baby this weekend, would be my guess. We'll see. And so on Tuesday of next week, you'll be watching this great film called Greed from 1998, and you'll see Donald Trump walk by, and it's going to make your heart soar like a hawk. You're going to say, oh, there he is when he's young, and it's when there's like, when money's falling from the sky and he's going, money, 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 money. It's great. You're going to like it. It's going to make a really good argument as to why selfishness is not only good and beneficial, and you're already doing it and you already embrace it because of the systems that we have in place called capitalism. Now, some of you might be like, I like socialism. Okay, well, no, you don't. I promise you don't. A government modified form of capitalism produces some of the best results economically and always has in every experiment that's been done. Of course, maybe human nature will change, but that seems unlikely here in the near future. So you will be looking at that, and maybe by that point, you'll be fully convinced that egoism is right because of all the great benefit. It's called greed, and the argument is that greed isn't bad, but greed is good. Okay, any questions before I wave sayonara and say have a good rest of your day and weekend, and we'll see you after bed? Questions? Okay, it's been fun, guys. We'll see you later.
I actually had one.
Yeah.
Is